Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. We're trying to connect with Bethany Mandel. While we're trying to do that, I'll give you my first thoughts about the new Pope. Now, I'm Catholic, born and raised, cradle Catholic, K through 12, Catholic education. And I don't remember John Paul the 23rd. I remember Pius the Sixth when he died. I wasn't really aware of him then. And of course, I remember John Paul the first dying quickly and John Paul II being this 58-year-old remarkable Polish Pope who helped Reagan and Thatcher bring down the Soviet Union. From there, we go to Benedict, the scholar, that's going to be a doctor of the church, the great theologian. Then we go to Francis, the humble, pastoral, smell like the sheep Pope from South America. And I didn't know what quite to expect because of the 133 voting members of the conclave, two-thirds of them have been appointed by Francis. It's up to the Pope to name cardinals, and I did not like the cardinals being passed over in the United States. And so I was worried about this, and I've done my reading this far on Leo XIV, and he's an Augustinian. And I was reminded by one friend, Luther was an Augustinian too. And so oh no, no, but there are many, many good Augustinian men out there, and they're frontline people. They are an order of priests who have been following the rule of St. Augustine for as long as anyone's been following any rule. The rule of Augustine goes back more than 1,000 years, and it's a mendicant order. They don't know anything. He's a very humble man. He is a Cubs fan. It has been confirmed for me that he's a Cubs fan. So if he posted anything on his X account about the Cubs Indian series of 2016, I might have a negative take on the beginning. But there are no hot takes on popes. All right, you can't have a hot take. Nobody quite knew what to expect from Francis, and maybe it went a little sideways often, too often. Maybe he's a little incautious in his words. He was actually doctrinally, at the end of the day, nothing changed, but he sure left a wake of confusion about a lot of different things. And he started synods and synodality, and I'm just a Catholic layperson. I'm not even a Knight of Columbus. All right, I'm just a regular mass attending Catholic, and try and keep the rules of the church, and also be a good Presbyterian attendee as well. I cover both banks of one river. But I like his initial talk, but you can't tell anything until after many years in the papacy have gone by. And not the first year, not the second year, not the third year. It's really about 4 years in, and at least a couple of the occasions where he elevates cardinals to fill vacancies in the College of Cardinals. And that begins to tell you which way the church. And I hope he goes for some more traditional people. I hope he restores the vigorous observation of the Latin Rite Mass if that is the choice of the local bishop. To me, that was Francis being unnecessarily antagonistic towards a whole bunch of Catholics who do nothing but good for the Pope and the church, but he got a little grumpy as he got older, and I think that's fairly well known. And he clearly didn't like Americans much. And I think maybe, okay, Hugh Hewitt speculation here, I was so wrong on it would never be an American and it would take months. So take it for what it's worth, not much. Maybe they picked an American because Francis was so anti-American. So maybe they picked the American who is least like an American. I don't know, Leo XIV. I've never heard of him until today. If he was on the list, I didn't even notice it because I just passed over, like they've always put on there. Cardinal Dolan and I would laugh and say, no, we're not going to have an American Pope. And so, yeah, I'm stunned. Chicago, Cubs fan, actually will get Americans. You'll understand the complexities of the American. He went to Villanova. Means he doesn't know anything about college basketball, but that's a very normal Catholic upbringing. Chicago, so Catholic. Cubs fan, sorry about that. Ouch, I thought he'd be White Sox, given where he's from on the south side. The fact is, we don't have any idea how he will lead, or if he will lead or follow, or whether or not it'll be a long papacy. But the last Leo the 13th, started his papacy in 1878 and ended it in 1903. So you can set, there he is. We got, if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, that film is the first Pope believed to be on film, and it's the first ever Pope on film, and it's Leo the 13th. I don't know, and I'm waiting for someone to give me okay, get the magnifying glass out and look for clues. Why Leo the 14th? Because you can pick anything. You can pick Joe, Pope Joe, and Joe Bag of Donuts. You can have any name you want. John Paul I made that up. Like there wasn't a John Paul before that. That's why it's John Paul I, and John Paul the Great, St. John Paul the Great is John Paul II. John Paul I died suddenly after a month. And the verdict on that has always been Holy Spirit wanted somebody else and the conclave didn't get it right. And so prayers that they got it right. But boy, what a shock. Because if anyone had an American Pope on their bingo card, I was listening to Bishop Barron last night. I said this last hour, I'll repeat it. And in my X feed from last night, you can see, if you watch one thing on the conclave, watch Bishop Barron talking to the Irish lad from the ETWN about the various candidacies and what they bring in their strengths and their weaknesses. And Bishop Barron is very thoughtful, very scholarly. And he ran with the standard line, which you will, if you watch cable news, you'll hear it all night long. Nobody thought this was possible, a pope who comes out of America. So what are they thinking? Okay, if you've gone a little bit far in one direction, the old saying, fat pope, thin pope, fat pope, thin pope. Okay, they've gone a little bit progressive, and they went way anti-American. So if the progressives want to kind of get back to the middle without alarming the traditionalists, then go get yourself an American pseudo-progressive. But all members of the church have a preference for the poor. And all members are going to say the sorts of things he has said online. And every Catholic priest and Monsignor and bishop, and I've never known a cardinal, has said, which is, you've got to take care of the poor first. And what you do to the least of these, you've done for me. You got to hold up Christ as, in fact, true and divine and the one true way. You've got to be unapologetic about your missionary zeal. You've got to be willing to tell the world this is the right way. And it's a very unusual choice. I'd be less surprised by anybody else other than an American. I would be less surprised. But the Holy Spirit is in charge. So we just got to pray for the church and for Leo the 14th. Even if you're not a Catholic, you don't want him to fail. The church is awfully big, and it is the most visible religious leader in the world. I know some people like to say the Dalai Lama. I have met him. I've spent a few hours with the Dalai Lama. But I don't think that's true. I think he's a nice Buddhist, but they're not 1.4 billion, and they did not create Western civilization quite the way that the Catholic Church did. And so it's a extraordinary thing that two popes in a row come from the New World, one from South America, one from North America, and I guess we are all living in a new age, and I'm hopeful that this new pope is cautious and careful and very smart about who he surrounds himself with, and that the Vatican gets reformed in the way it needs to be reformed, and that bishops are allowed to be bishops and not told what to do. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
The Hugh Hewitt Show is now available on TV. Go to salemnewschannel.com or download the app. You can also watch on Roku and Fire Stick. Salem News Channel, the antidote to the mainstream media.